The proper spelling of Bridgewater is something of a sensitive issue, so let's settle it once and for all. B is for Bridgewater. R comes next. I must surely follow. But, must I? Should you? If we go back to the first mention of Bridgewater, the third letter is a U. And this appears all the way from the 1080s for the next 400 years. We even find it in the 19th century in phonetic spellings in the West Country accent. We don't get an I in Bridgewater until 1315, some 250 years after the town is first mentioned. Y makes an appearance in 1360 and stays in use for 200 years, and in 1317 we even get a cheeky wee E. So it seems that U has a longer pedigree than I, which is little better than Y, and we occasionally get an E. So basically the third letter of the town can be any vowel you want except for A. Moving on then, we have D. Or should we? This is the real interloper, not mentioned all the way until 1555. In the witch hunt, that is, people arguing about the middle E in Bridgewater or not, this shifty blighter has been hiding in a trench coat at the back of the crowd, trying not to draw attention to itself. We can go through all 5 volumes of the Borough Archives and only find one D from a document that's clearly a later forgery. This all comes from the development of the English language, which saw D added to certain words as pronunciation shifted. Bridge, ridge, edge, hedge and wedge, for example. And as far as I can tell, Queen Mary put the D in Bridgewater, her royal charter to the town being the earliest example I've found so far. That's 500 years into the town's history. There was no D in Bridgewater for a longer time than there has actually been one. Next letter. G. Terra firma. For every spelling of Bridgewater in history, there's always been the friendly G. But why stop at 1 when you can always have 2? What's next? Well, you've all been waiting for it. That's right. I. Well, only in the 12th century anyway. So the early spellings we have are Bruggi and Brugis. What's after I then? S. S is clearly after I. Again, this one dies out, but it sticks around longer than you think. The last time I've seen it appear is 1379. Okay then. This is what you're really here for. What's the old joke? I'm pretty sure this might be one of Smedley's. I saw it online somewhere back in the 2000s. The joke being, there's no E in the centre of Bridgewater, but you can probably get plenty in the estates if you know the right person. Nothing will get the typical stout townsman more irate than somebody from outside the town adding one little extra E in by mistake. And nothing pleases the local contrarian more than pointing out all the plenty of examples of it showing up about the place in historical ways. For example, it's even on the town seal, with no D, I should add. So what's going on here? For once and for all, should there or should there not be an E in the middle of Bridgewater? Yes and no. The very first time Bridgewater is mentioned in 1086, there is an E. But the second time it's mentioned in 1178, there is no E. And this story continues for the next 900 years. We see Bruges in 1200, Brugg in 1234, and this back and forth goes all the way through the town's history. There has always been an E in the middle of Bridgewater, and there has always not been an E in the middle of Bridgewater. Any stories you've heard about dyslexic mayors and so on are just not true. I'll come back to this, but let's get on with the second half of the word. But you could stop there if you wanted. The town was referred to as simply Brugg or Bridge or Brig as late as 1444 as far as I can tell. Just call it Bridge if you want. But do you remember Walter? Do you remember Walter playing cricket in the thunder and the rain? Of course you don't. No one does. Walter was just some Norman lord who graffitis his name onto the place not long after the Norman conquest. He left absolutely nothing else to the town's history. Could be worse though. Unusually we get Walter's first name tacked onto the place. We might have ended up as Bridgwater. Do whatever, which is probably a mercy considering the grief we have trying to pronounce Pennell or Liu. Anyway, in terms of spelling, we should really have kept the L in it. Walter. It's not water, it's Walter. The trouble is Walter, in the Somerset accent, just becomes water. Water. So in this case, with the L, you either use it or you lose it, and we lost it. But as you can imagine, even Walter has been spelled in many wild ways, not least with an extra U, but also a cheeky little E on the end if you want. So how did we get the name we've got now? The first instance of Bridgewater, as it's often spelled, and all the international Bridgewaters have, first comes in 1555 in Queen Mary's Charter to Bridgewater. That's the earliest one I've found anyway. And the earliest instance of the modern Bridgewater, I found at least, is on this 1666 coin. So the big obvious point I'm tortuously labouring here is that there's never really been a standardised spelling of Bridgewater. Prior to the 19th century, English spelling was basically a free-for-all. Unlike an inflected language like Latin, which has very strict letter ordering to make sense of the language, with English you can just muddle along like the vulgar barbarians we are. Things started to fossilise in the early modern period, and for the last 400 years the major differences have been with the middle E, although a lot of other spellings still crept in. And ultimately, between Bridgewater and Bridgewater, the shorter one won out, for no other reason than just sheer chance. Although I'm sure every scribe and sign writer in the town was glad to have less work to do. In the Victorian period, both spellings were current, but things like the railway, Royal Mail and Ordnance Survey helped with the idea that there was only one, and ultimately Bridgewater without an E won out. There's no single occasion when somebody said it should be this way, it just is. So how many E's in Bridgewater? Between 1 and 4. That D shouldn't really be there, and we're unjustifiably missing our L. But we should probably agree that Bridgewater is probably the best way to spell it. It's certainly the easiest to Google. But anyway, the rule is that anyone within the town might want to add a spicy extra E in the middle, but anyone from outside the town who does so should be flayed alive. That's the rule. Thank you very much.